Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Recha Kodash. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Isaiah, the 38th chapter. All right, Hezekiah healed. And as we went through in Isaiah, the 37th chapter, this was Hezekiah having received the report from Eliakim, Shebna, and the rest about the reproach of Rabshakeh, right, as he delivered Sennacherib's message to Israel. Hezekiah was in great distress and ended up sending to go and beseech or ask Isaiah to pray to the Lord that he may have mercy upon Israel and deliver us. And in that chapter, the Lord ends up, replying, saying that, yes, he is going to deliver Israel. And he ends up doing so by slaying a good majority of the Assyrian troops and having Sennacherib flee to his own land, where he ends up getting put to death by his sons. So this is Isaiah chapter 38, right, as we continue from 37, verse 1. In those days was Hezekiah sick unto death. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, came unto him, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Set thine house in order, for thou shalt die, and not live. Then Hezekiah turned his face toward the wall, and prayed unto the Lord Yahweh, and said, Remember now, O Yahweh, I beseech thee, how I have walked before thee in truth, with a perfect heart, and have done that which is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept sore. So Hezekiah was very stressed, right? Not only was he in the pain of his ailment, whatever it was that he was suffering, but now being told that you wouldn't recover from this, right? You're going to be put to death, or you're going to die from this. You can imagine being, any man, right? it's human nature. But he was very stressed out, right? And so he wept, right? And beseeched the Lord. He cried unto the Lord. Then came the word of the Lord Yahweh unto Isaiah, saying, Go and say unto Hezekiah, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will add unto thy days 15 years. Goes to show you how merciful the Lord is, right? Upon seeing Hezekiah literally crying unto the Lord, he heard it and he basically changed his mind, right? And said, you know what? Which in the long run, maybe he never intended to take Hezekiah out in the first place. I don't know. The point is, this highlights the mercy of Yahweh Ba'asham Yahushai, right? For Hezekiah to cry unto him. And he ends up showing mercy here. So he basically says, look, rather than dying as a result of this ailment, be it this week, this month, this year, I'm going to give you 15 more years. Now, what's interesting about this is, on one hand, it's almost like, okay, that, at the very least, you're going to die in like 15 years, give or take, but not before, right? So it's almost like a, on the other hand, yes, your time is limited. However, that no matter what, you're going to be preserved at least for 15 years, because that's what the Lord said. Verse 6, and I will deliver thee out of this city, or thee and this city, out of the hand of the king of Assyria, and I will defend this city. Now, as it mentions above, in those days, right, was Hezekiah sick unto death. This chapter is not, it doesn't give you definitive evidence as to whether this happened prior to the events in Isaiah 37 or if it happened afterward. In fact, maybe I can look it up. Did the events in Isaiah 38 happen before Isaiah 37? Oh, I put 28, I meant 38. Occurred, which it comes in the past event to highlight God. Okay, so that makes sense then. Cool. So makes sense here that, and I think I mentioned this in a previous lesson, that even though Isaiah the 38th chapter is 38, that comes after 37, it doesn't mean that everything written in these chapters is in chronological order. And one example here too is, like, I think it mentioned in the AI overview that this is like a flashback to Hezekiah's illness. So the point is, this account we're reading of here of Hezekiah's illness and what the Lord ends up telling him, having mercy on him, happens prior to what we read in chapter 36 and 37, where the Assyrians came, right? One, we know that Hezekiah wasn't, it doesn't say that he was sick at that time. And two, it makes sense because here the Lord is telling him, I'm going to deliver you from the king of Assyria, right? Anyway, and we saw that the Lord did that in the 37th chapter. So verse 7, and this shall be a sign unto thee from the Lord Yahweh, that the Lord Yahweh will do this thing that he hath spoken. So to confirm the words of the Lord and to show you that indeed he is going to add those 15 years to your life, and he's going to defend the city so you don't have to worry. He's going to give you the sign. And the sign here is, behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz 10 degrees backward. Now, back in the ancient world, now we have clocks, right? Most people, sadly, some people don't even know how to read like an actual clock. So because you always have the digital time, it tells you exactly what time it is. But nowadays we use that. In the ancient world, they used sundials to tell time, like on a day level. So a sundial looks something like this, right? Here's an example. And what this is it's designed in a way where you have this piece that protrudes outward, and as you can see, the shadow is over here. So there's markings on here which would be likened onto like the degrees or the ticks. Today on a clock you have the hand, and then you have like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, and there's ticks in between. So what this does is, depending on the location you are, say you're in like the northern hemisphere, I believe, then it moves clockwise or so. But as the sun rises and sets, right, during the daytime, as it's moving, the shadow, of course, is going to be moving as well, because the direction or the angle at which the light is going to be hitting this piece right here is going to be shifting, right, as the day moves on. And so as that happens, they look at the shadow to determine what time it is. Okay. And so obviously looking at these measurements here, there's in what we're reading of in Isaiah 38, it's measured in degrees. But in this case, you can see like these are Roman numeral measurements here. So what the Lord did was the sundial would always move in the same direction. Right, the shadow here would always move in the same direction. Meaning in the daytime, if it started here or here or here, as the sun moves, as the day goes on, that shadow would continue to go through all the way until the sun set. And when the sun rose again from that same position, the shadow would start off again in the same, because the sun is moving in one direction. So the shadow is casting based on it hitting this angle here is always going to be in that same direction. And so by the Lord moving it 10 degrees backward, in essence, the only way when you're looking at a sundial for the shadow to go backward would be the sun would have to reverse its course. And we know like that's not something that happens naturally. So that's a big enough sign, a definitive enough sign to say, hey, that sundial moved 10 degrees backward. That shadow moved the opposite way, 10 degrees. The only way that can happen is if the sun went backwards. And so you can deduce that, okay, this is the Lord's doing. That's one example, as to why the Lord use a scenario like this to show you, like, he favored Hezekiah to show him that sort of sure proof that, hey, what I've said is going to happen. So as it says here, behold, I will bring again the shadow of the degrees, which is gone down in the sundial of Ahaz 10 degrees backward. So the sun returned 10 degrees, by which degrees it was gone down. See? So as the sun moved, the Lord reversed it 10 degrees. And you can see that happening by looking at the shadow on the sundial. The writing of Hezekiah, king of Judah, when he had been sick and was recovered of his sickness. I said, so when Hezekiah, the Lord had mercy on him and he recovered from that ailment or that illness, this was the writing, like either a psalm or a song or whatever, but it was to show what he was feeling and, so on. Kind of like the Psalms of David. So it says here, I said in the cutting off of my days, I shall go to the gates of the grave, right? And this was referring to him dying or being told that he was going to die, right? He likens it onto his days or his lifespan being cut off. You can imagine probably at an age that you wouldn't normally deem appropriate to die, right? Because people want to live to they want to live a long time. So as it says here, I shall go to the gates of the grave, meaning he's going to die. I am deprived of the residue of my years, right? So it's like saying, like, I'm only 40, for example, and I'm going to die now, right? So like, basically I'm being deprived of, my 50s, my 60s, my 70s, which are like the residue, the remaining of an average lifespan. I said, I shall not see the Lord Yahweh, even the Lord in the land of the living. I shall behold man no more with the inhabitants of the world. So this is, keep in mind, these are the thoughts going through Hezekiah's mind, right? As he is, reflecting on what the message that was received. Like, damn, I'm really about to die. Like, I'm not going to see people anymore. I'm actually, because being told ahead of time, your whole perspective changes, right? Now you're actually thinking and you're seeing things differently, like, damn, like, yo, all this, I'm not going to see it anymore. Like, you start to reassess, like, what really matters in life, become philosophical, and it happens. Mine age is departed. And when you go into the word age here, most of the definitions are in terms of like a generation, but the habitation or dwelling, when you look at the Gesenius's Hebrew Chaldee lexicon, that is the use case applied to this verse here, right? So habitation, and you can see Isaiah 38 and 12, which is a precept we just read. So really what he is saying, and when you look in these other translations, you'll see, like, as it says, ESV, for example, my dwelling is plucked up, as where in the King James it says my age is departed. So as he says, my age is departed and is removed from me as a shepherd's tent. So he's likening how swift, like all of a sudden he's about to die, to a shepherd's tent. Reason being, a shepherd's tent wasn't like a structured building that was built in one place and had a sure foundation so it would last long. A shepherd's tent was very temporary, right? You could set it up quick, and if you had to move, you could easily, dismantle it very quickly. So that's how he's likening his life span here, as he's told that he's going to die. And then obviously the Lord said that he would have mercy, but he's saying from when he was told he was going to die, what he was thinking, what he felt as he cried unto the Lord until he got that good news. So he likened his life onto like a shepherd's tent that's just easily removed. I have cut off like a weaver my life. He will cut me off with pining sickness. And now he likens how his life is cut off. Like a weaver is one that like weaves, right? And so typically today, for example, traditionally you could use, if you had like a rip in your clothes, you could use a needle and thread, right? And then you would just sew it. And when you were done, you would cut the thread wherever it was. So he's likening his life to like that thread that's just cut out of nowhere. You see, the thread never knows when the thread is just there in the needle. It doesn't know when it's about to be cut. It doesn't know when its time is up. It just knows that it's being used, and then boom, it's cut. He will cut me off with pining sickness. From day even to night wilt thou make an end of me. And when he says from day even to night, he's referring to how quickly, right? That's like an idiom for not even a full day, right? Which is like a short time, as Hezekiah is emphasizing here, saying, Lord, in other words, Lord, I'm too young to die. Have mercy. Verse 13, I reckoned till morning that as a lion, so will he break all my bones. From day even to night wilt thou make an end of me. Right. And here he's emphasizing like he's powerless, like how you would be before a lion that can break your bones with his teeth. He's powerless before the Lord. And so quickly, right, as it says, from day even till night wilt thou make an end of me, to say how quickly the Lord is gonna take away his life. At least that's how he felt. Like a crane or a swallow did I chatter. I did mourn as a dove. And the crane or the swallow, the sounds that they make, can be like likened on to like a quick, sound, right? Like quick in intervals of sounds. And so whether he's likening maybe how he was, the sounds he was making, or how he was crying, or how he was mourning, he compares it to like this, the chattering of this crane or swallow. He also likens his mourning onto a dove. And I looked this up, right? I believe it's called cooing, what doves do. So I typed this in, doves cooing, and here's a video so you can hear what it sounds like. So Hezekiah is not saying, he wasn't making these sounds, but when you listen to like how these doves, like the sounds they make when they're cooing, from using that in the right sense, it sounds like somebody that's sobbing, right? When you hear somebody crying and they're sobbing, they're not continuously crying, right? They're not continuously making that crying sound. There's like like bursts, like there's periods where you hear them cry. Sometimes it'll be even louder, and then they'll like get quiet for a bit. They'll sob. They'll breathe, and then they'll go back to it. Okay, so he's likening his mourning to this this thing that these doves do. And you see this a lot especially in the book of Isaiah, because they spoke right in this like poetic manner. The things they compared, whatever it is the message they were trying to get across to, was based on the culture or the living that they were living back then, right? So as it says, and we do that today, right, with modern day examples. He says, mine eyes fail with looking upward, signifying him looking up, right, to the Lord for help. Oh, Yahweh, I am oppressed. Undertake for me, right? And this, when you go into undertake, it's like taking a pledge, which is to say, like, step in, right, and assure my safety or my deliverance here. So what is he doing here? He's pretty much expressing his sorrow and his cries to the Lord to help him, to have mercy on him. Verse 15, what shall I say? He hath both spoken unto me, and himself hath done it. I shall go softly all my years in the bitterness of my soul. So he's basically now saying, like, the Lord, he said it, and he did exactly what he said. right? So as Hezekiah started to recover, right, he obviously believed the words of the Lord since he saw the sign, and then he started to recover. So as he says here, the Lord said it and he did it. And going softly here, it's more like, when somebody goes through something, whether it's like a life-threatening situation, and then they have a new look on life, where they're not just like zooming and and running hastily through life, but rather in a more appreciative and observant manner of living. And he's saying that in remembering this bitter events that he had to go through. O Lord, by these things men live, and in all these things is the life of my spirit. So wilt thou recover me and make me to live. Behold, for peace I had great bitterness, but thou hast in love to my soul delivered it from the pit of corruption. The pit of corruption meaning death or the grave. So he's saying I was in bitterness, right? I didn't have peace. I was suffering, but due to the love that you had for my soul, you delivered me from death. For thou hast cast all my sins behind thy back, right? Because the scriptures tell you that the wages of sin is death. And Hezekiah knew that he wasn't innocent, in the sense that like nobody's perfect, but the Lord had mercy in overlooking those whatever things that he may have fallen short on. For the grave cannot praise thee, death cannot celebrate thee. They that go down into the pit cannot hope for thy truth. Right. So as he's saying, those that once you're in the grave, you can't praise the Lord, you're dead. Right. And what he's signifying is like praising from the land of the living. Right. Death cannot celebrate thee, but those that are alive can. They that go down to the pit, in other words, they that die, cannot hope for thy truth. The living, he shall praise thee, as I do this day. The father to the children shall make known thy truth. So he's showing gratitude to the Lord, saying, Tawada, for granting me mercy to recover. Okay, because now I can praise you, I can rejoice, I can make known your word and your glory here in the land of the living. The dead don't get to do that. The Lord Yahweh was ready to save me. And it's more like a figure of speech, right? So don't get confused when you think, well, how about those that died, but then they go to the spirit world and it's still their same spirit? Wouldn't they be able to praise the Lord or acknowledge the Lord's greatness even in the spirit world? So why is Hezekiah saying the grave cannot praise thee? The point he's trying to get across is, when I'm alive, I can do these things, right? On the earth, I can show your glory by praising your word, by making it known unto others, right? While I'm on the earth. But when I die, I can't do that. Verse 20, the Lord Yahweh was ready to save me. Therefore will I sing my songs to the stringed instruments all the days of our life in the house of the Lord. See, so likely this probably maybe wasn't the only writing that Hezekiah had. But based on this, we know that he did write more than likely a couple of other songs, right? Praising the Lord, because this was a big event, right, in his life. For Isaiah had said, let them take a lump of figs and lay it for a plaster upon the boil, and he shall recover. So whatever it is that Hezekiah got, maybe it was an infection, whatever it was, the Lord put the spirit on Isaiah to tell him, all right, do this, and it'll remedy your ailment, and then you'll be good. Hezekiah also had said, what is the sign that I shall go up to the house of the Lord? And that's when the Lord had Isaiah show him the sign, and he ends up getting recovered, and he ends up praising the Lord. And this is the end of the book of Isaiah, the 38th chapter. So Lord willing, this was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Recha Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.